right. Y'all ready here to do a part 2? Let's do that. So close this down right here and enter full screen mode. And then let's see where we left off. Right, this is my study guide. Here's my cheat sheet. And we had the drawing, light dependent and light independent reactions. Still signed in here. That's great. Wait, what? All right. Got notes here. Slight respiration. Should probably be on photosynthesis. Because our next thing that we have to do is know the products and reactants of both the light dependent and light independent phases of photosynthesis. So if you have this drawing here, which is slide number 8, week 15, you'll be able to see those reactants and products. Let's go to the pigments. So we said week 15, Thursday, Friday, slide number 8. Let's look at that and see if we could just see what our reactants and products are. And that is number 8. All right. So you got your light dependent reaction, you got your light independent reaction. Well, if we just think of photosynthesis, we know photosynthesis needs light to occur. It also needs carbon dioxide and water. So where do we see H2O coming in here? Well, we see H2O coming in the carbon cycle. We see carbon dioxide coming in the carbon cycle. But for this light-dependent reaction, we don't see carbon dioxide coming in. But we do see water coming in. So maybe one of the reactants for the light-dependent reaction, the reactants are water and sunlight. Let's take a look at the slide. This is for light-dependent reaction. So we have sunlight, you have H2O, you have this ADP, ATP cycle here. Oh, and you got CO2 coming in on the stage 3. And you got this cycle with NADPH and NADP+. And this wants us to decide the products and reactants of both light-dependent and light-independent reactions. So in my cheat sheet, I have light-independent reaction. We got produces. Let's put reactants. Both of those. For our light-independent reaction, maybe we can zoom in here. The input is CO2. Oh, it looks like, because you have the Calvin cycle here and the make sure which one's the Calvin cycle. Okay, what is it? Electron transport chain Calvin cycle. Let's do a clarifying question here. Okay, so the Calvin cycle is the light independent reaction. And let's just go Calvin cycle reactants. We got CO2, ATP, and NADPH. So let's take a look at these graphs here and see if we can make sense of that in the light independent reaction. Well, we got CO2. There's ATP coming in and producing ATP or ATP, and then there's NADPH. So, well, This is a pretty good information here. Here's Calvin's cycle at study.com. The reactants are CO2, ATP, and NADPH. Yeah, I'll go with that. So for my reactants in the light independent reaction, let's make sure we clarify and call this Calvin's cycle. We'll go, yeah, CO2, ATP, and NADPH produces glucose, ADP, and NADP+. That's magnificent, right? Because that's exactly what this graph says. So it's good that we have on the cheat sheet what we could find in the notes. That's a good sign that that our cheat sheet is good. It's not going to steer us wrong. All right, now for the light dependent reaction is the one that depends on light. Would we say that sunlight is a reactant? Let's see. Get some help with the internet. Hmm. 7 steps, huh? Hmm. Use solar energy. So we have sunlight. With H2O coming here. We have this cycle of ADP and ATP. We've got some CO2 coming in here. And we've got NADPH. We also have NADPH here. Let's see if we can make sense of these graphs. So it looks like in this photosynthesis, in the light dependent reaction, it's producing the ATP and the NADPH to power the Calvin cycle. We know that those are reactions for the Calvin cycle. And it says right here that this produces ATP, O2, and NADPH. I think for this to happen, it would need water and it would need light. Let's put that down. Reactants, light, water, and if this light dependent reaction graph has carbon dioxide in it, let me see what this is here. Now, I think this would be the chloroplast, right? It doesn't signify if this is the thylakoid. I mean, stage 1 is right over the thylakoid. Then it has stage 2, which is kind of like out of the thylakoids. And this stage 3, there's more thylakoids over here. So, like, is this whole thing a thylakoid or is this a chloroplast? I think this is a chloroplast, right? But it doesn't signify that. So these are questions to ask during class, right? But we didn't ask those questions, so at least they came up eventually. There's always a chance too to ask it like before this test starts. It's like here. Right, all right, so we got this NADPH and this ATP over here. It looks like, you know, we have arrows over here. We got this carbon dioxide, this water. So if we look at this graph, we know that this was the handout, and we know that we specifically named this whole thing chloroplast, whereas these things are the thylakoids. And you look up here, it looks pretty similar. It's almost like they're calling stage 3 the Calvin cycle. is the product of the Calvin cycle. Is it glucose? Is it carbohydrate? It is. Ah, okay. So this stage 3 in this graph right here is the Calvin cycle, whereas this stage 1 is going to be the light-dependent reaction, right? Because the light-dependent reaction doesn't produce the glucose, right? You need the Calvin cycle for that. And let's clarify this with some Google research. No, the light-dependent reaction of photosynthesis does not produce glucose. Instead, glucose is produced in a separate light-independent reaction called the Calvin cycle. All right. So back to this graphs. I don't see carbon dioxide here in the light-dependent reaction. For now, I'm just going to put water and light. I think that's pretty good. Okay. Got that one down. Know the function of chlorophyll and where it is found in the chloroplast. All right. So now we're going to name a section. We call this chlorophyll. And we got notes about the chlorophyll, I think in week 16. So let's go to modules. Wow, we just learned about the chlorophyll. Photosynthetic pigments, that should be it. Okay. So what are we looking for? We're looking for the function of chlorophyll. There we go. Chlorophyll absorb sunlight in order to power photosynthesis. I'll just copy that down. Let's go function. All right. And where it is found in the chloroplast? I'm pretty sure it's found in the thylakoid membrane. Yeah, present in the thylakoid membrane. Okay. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. 11 more to go. Once a month. What is cellular respiration? What factors affect the rate of respiration? Nice. So once there's just straight up defined cellular respiration. Now we have photosynthesis here. Don't have anything about cellular respiration yet. We got some stuff about ATP, but nothing about cellular respiration yet. So now we'll do a new thing about all about cellular respiration. And put that in bold. What we got here? Some more notes. So we have to go back. Cellular respiration was a little bit further back here. We learned about cellular respiration first before photosynthesis. That's week 15. Cellular respiration. What about week 14? ATP. Yeah. So let's do these week 15 slides. Cellular respiration. All right. So as far as what is, let's look for a good definition here. Making ATP from glucose. That's pretty good. We'll put that there for now. See if we don't find anything better. We can put a little definition right here. Making ATP glucose. what is cellular respiration? Um, what factors affect the rate of respiration? Factors that affect the rate of cellular respiration. I'll just put 3 there for now, but I don't even know if I'm gonna use 3 bullet points. Let's see. So we find a good slide on factors that affect the external affects respiration. Oh, we know from our cellular respiration lab that the amount of oxygen and the amount of oxygen we take in affects the rate of cellular respiration. So our rate of oxygen uptake okay, here we go. Awesome. A whole slide just based on that. So let's copy that down. Oxygen availability, glucose availability, temperature, and cell demand for energy. Right. So in the cellular respiration lab, that's what we affected. Right. So we didn't affect the oxygen availability, right? We didn't turn down the oxygen amount in the room. We just kind of increased the cell's demand for energy, right? We exercise per minute, which increases cells demand for energy. Therefore, right, the heart rate was faster, which means we need taking more oxygen faster. The glucose that's available in our bloodstream or locked away in our muscles like glycogen, like we had to use that at a quicker rate. So this demand for energy used up these 2 things, which will produce more things in your equation of say respiration, equation, right? Overall reaction, right? Glucose, oxygen, which produces carbon dioxide, water, and ATP. Remember, in the cellular respiration lab, we were measuring how much carbon dioxide we were outputting. Now we increased the cell's amount of energy, which increased the amount of oxygen we were breathing in and increased the glucose that we were using, right? Which was like stored energy. Of course, glucose gets broken down and like glycogen and stuff like that gets stored in the muscles. Yeah, so that's kind of what we're doing in that lab. This is like a reminder, so it makes sense. Let's go back to those factors and write these 4 things down. Oxygen availability and glucose availability. Temperature and say cells demand for energy. Right? Got that one. Cells demand for energy. Yep, cool, that's all there. All right, let me fix that format. What's going on here? There we go. That will do. All right. And as far as what is cellular respiration, it'd probably be best to write this equation down. I know we wrote down an equation somewhere over here. Okay, so we wrote down the equation for photosynthesis, right? So we better write down the equation for cellular respiration. Copy that, because when you write this down, you are going to switch it around. Okay. Produces water, carbon dioxide plus ATP. Oh, didn't copy down the way I wanted to. That's fine. We know how to write chemical symbols like this, right? It's a lot easier to write down by hand than typing on the computer. So we'll leave that like that for now. That was good. That's the equation. Oh, everything was nice and neat. It's a perfectionist. Try to be sometimes, because most of the time I'm just not. Okay, so we know what cellular respiration is, and we know what factors affect the rate of cellular respiration. Which step of cellular makes the majority of ATP? Ooh, we know that. That's also going to be found in these slides. It's the electron transport chain, right? Because step one produces 2 ATP. Step two doesn't produce any ATP, but it does produce this acetyl-CoA, which is needed for these other, like the citric acid cycle. Where's acetyl-CoA in here? There it is. And then, so this is going to produce 2 ATP as well. So it's 4. And then electron transport chain produces 34. So 2 plus 2 plus 34 is 38. So the majority of the ATP is produced in electron transport chain. So I guess we should probably write down the 4 steps of the cellular respiration thing. 4 steps of cellular respiration. So if you don't already know this, you should definitely write it down. And right next to electron transport chain, we'll say produces majority of ATP. And we'll just write 34. I'll write about, because as we know, it varies, but like the low end of this estimate was about 30, and the high end was 34, or could probably even be higher. So we'll just put 34. We're going with that number. And what was number one? I forgot. Citric acid cycle. Number three, citric acid cycle. And number two, breakdown of pyruvate. Sure, we'll just write down that. And number one is glycolysis. Okay, here's what we have here. All right, what do we have? What did I do? Yeah, I did yellow for like vocab words. So from cellular respiration, keep up here, 4 steps for cellular respiration. But that's important. All right, so we know which step produces the majority of the ATP. Got that. Know what is needed, reactants, and what is produced in respiration. Okay, we've already got that with this equation. We know the reactants are oxygen and glucose. And we know the products are ATP, H2O, and CO2. Right, ATP, water, and carbon dioxide. So we know the reactants, we know the products. Be able to write the equation for respiration in both words and chemical symbols. Yeah, that you have to make sure you do. And so we write down chemical symbols that we want to write in equation form. So like you see how I have O2, we have C6H12O6. Write it like that. Still put it right now into. I'll make sure I'm legit here. I can't just copy and paste that though. That's annoying. I can't just go like this. And like this. I can. Cool. That'll work. But that's water and carbon dioxide. So we do that. Put that there. I'll put ATP plus water. So leave that arrow there because now we got to include oxygen and water. No, oxygen and glucose, which is the product of photosynthesis. So if you've been to class and you had me teach this class, you know how much I talk about. Like, oh, look at how the products of photosynthesis are the reactants of cellular respiration. It's almost like there's somebody else is going on here. And indeed there is. Somebody else is going on with plant life and animal life. So did we form the plants or did the plants form us? Maybe you should read Botany of Desire, this book right here by Michael Pollan. Yeah, he explores that topic in more detail. So definitely recommend reading that book. Hey, over the summer, finally have more time to read books that you want to read, right? Not things people are like telling you have to read for school and grades and stuff. I'm definitely gonna enjoy that. So that will be all done here at U of O in 2 weeks. Be able to write the equation in both words and chemical symbols. All right, we have that. Cellular respiration, here's my equation. Good. We're getting close. Now the electron carrier molecules NADPH, FADH2 know the electron carrier molecules. Okay, we know them. And what are they used for? Oh, right. Let's write about those. Let's just write it there, electron carrier molecules. Right? That's what we call them. NADPH, NADPH, and FADPH2? Is that right? FADH2. Okay. FADH2. Hey, maybe if I could just like copy this, maybe it's right. Yes. FADH2. Make sure that's right again. FADH2. Good. And NADPH. Cool. That's good. And then make sure that I call it the right thing. Electron carrier molecules. Electron carrier molecules. NADPH and FADH2. Okay, so what do we need to know about that? Let's see if we can figure out what they do. So here's NADH. Looks like a lot of NADH is getting created in this Krebs cycle. Electrons are carried to electron transport chain by NADH and FADH2. FADH2. And then it also said NADH. And now the P there. All right, now the electron transport chain. We have FADH2 getting turned into FAD plus 2 protons here. Quick research. These are things I should already know. Hydrogen ions are called protons. Cool. That's good. NADH being turned into NAD plus 2 hydrogens. And where are these hydrogens going? Oh, so now they're carrying electrons, which they spew into the electron transport chain. Oh, that makes so much sense now. ATP synthase complex. All right. Is there even more information we should know about NADPH and FADH2? What does it first produce? 2-pyruvate. All right, let's do some little research. What is NADPH and FADH2 do in cellular respiration? Oh, more AI. Energy molecules that transport electrons to the electron transport chain during cellular respiration. Okay. Transport electrons to the electron transport chain during cellular respiration. That's a good one to write. Good. What else did it say? These electrons were originally in the carbon hydrogen bonds of glucose. Okay. Can we see that here? Glucose is broken down into 2-pyruvate. That's the glucose molecule. It's broken down into 2-pyruvate. Now we have to break down that pyruvate to make acetyl-CoA and carbon dioxide. So now we're taking that acetyl-CoA and we're producing a lot of NADH, a little bit of ATP, some FADH and NADH. Okay. And then in the electron transport chain, we use that to carry electrons. Energy from electrons used to make ATP. Okay. So how is electrons used in transport chain? Electrons are used in the electron transport chain to create an electrochemical gradient that drives the production of adenosine triphosphate. The electron transport what HEC chain is a series of protein complexes and other molecules that pass electrons from donors to acceptors through redox reactions. All right, as you go into higher science classes, you'll learn a little bit about redox reactions. As the electrons move from a higher to a lower energy state, some of their energy is captured and used to pump hydrogen ions across the inner membrane of the mitochondria. This creates a buildup of positively charged protons, which generates an electrical potential across the membrane. So it's all electricity. And we see that happening here, right? Here's that gradient we're talking about. It's just pumping hydrogen ions through that to make ATP. All right. So that was just more in-depth knowledge. It's probably a good drawing to look at. Yeah. All right. Now, what did it say about these two molecules? As electrons move down the chain, they release energy, which is used to pump hydrogen ions out of the matrix and into the intermembrane space. This creates an electrochemical gradient that leads to the production of ATP. I'm going to write that down too in my cheat sheet. I'm going to copy that down, right? It just seems important, because it's on the study guide, right? That we have to know the electron carrier molecules, NADPH and FADH. I feel like we didn't talk about them enough, so that's something I would write down on a cheat sheet. If it wasn't covered enough and you feel like you're gonna be tested on it, might as well know it, or write it down somewhere where you can know it. Electron carrier molecules, NADPH and FADH2 transport electrons to the electron transport chain during cellular respiration. As the electrons move down the chain, they release energy, which is used to pump hydrogen ions out of the matrix and into the intermembrane space. This creates an electrochemical gradient that leads to the production of ATP. That's pretty good. That's really in depth right there. I don't think we're gonna miss any questions about these two energy carrying molecules. Know the difference between aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Okay. So aerobic respiration versus anaerobic respiration. We'll put a note in here that anaerobic is without oxygen and aerobic is with oxygen. So know the difference. So no, in glycolysis, no oxygen is needed. So that's anaerobic respiration. And pyruvate, well, you could have oxygen present, or you cannot have oxygen present. This is where you produce lactic acid. Now, is lactic acid used in this third thing, the Krebs cycle? No. Interesting. Because we know that like when we run hard, right? When you're running really fast, you're gonna have pain in your legs or maybe your lungs or just whatever is painful. It's gonna slow you down, right? You can only run a 4-minute mile for so long, right? You know, the world's fastest marathon, Kipchoge ran it what, 1 hour, 59 minutes, 53 seconds? And that wasn't even a legit marathon, it was a race just built for him. But there are people that run sub 4 minutes in the mile, but they're not gonna run that pace for the whole marathon, right? And there's some people that just can't run a mile in under 8 minutes, whatever your mile time is, right? There's a reason why our body has limits. And it's because of this lactic acid here. But we know that if we have cellular respiration with oxygen, where it's aerobic respiration, we're going to produce this acetyl-CoA and carbon dioxide. But it looks like in animals, it produces lactic acid. And I don't see lactic acid in the Krebs cycle. So can we produce ATP with lactic acid? My thing is no. Oh, yes, muscle cells can use lactic acid fermentation to produce anandamide triphosphate when oxygen is low. This process is called anaerobic glycolysis, which is the breakdown of glucose into pyruvic acid in muscle cells. During this During this process, chemical energy is released and used to create 2 ATP molecules for each glucose that's metabolized. So it does produce 2 ATP molecules. But remember, when we have oxygen present, we're going to produce acetyl-CoA, which drives the Krebs cycle, then which drives the electron transport chain, which is where we produce the most ATP. So when you're building up a lot of lactic acid, you could still go at that pace, but not for long. And eventually you're going to run out of ATP, is my hypothesis. So can you have the Krebs cycle with too much lactic acid? Can we do Krebs cycle? Krebs cycle? Yep. Yes, tissues can use lactate as an energy source to enter the Krebs cycle, also known as the citric acid cycle. Lactate is the normal end product of the anaerobic glucose breakdown tissues. When oxygen is present, pyruvic acid can supply energy to the Krebs cycle. However, when oxygen is low, pyruvic acid ferments to produce lactate. Lactate then be quickly converted back to pyruvate and enter the Krebs cycle. Back to pyruvic acid. This was saying back to pyruvate. Okay, so what's the difference between pyruvate versus pyruvic acid? Is it the same? Hmm. Yeah, pyruvate and pyruvic acid almost interchangeably. Okay, so I don't know anything. I guess you can still enter the Krebs cycle with lactic acid. I feel like there's just more I need to dig into about this, and I could go for hours just researching. What are we doing again? All right, know the difference between aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Hmm. Okay, well, these slides are pretty good. Hmm. So aerobic respiration versus anaerobic. Instead of verses, I'll just kind of put this right here. Aerobic respiration. We'll go step two. Step two in cell respiration. Breakdown of pyruvate. Uses acetyl-CoA and CO2. Would be anaerobic respiration. This is glycolysis. Produces pyruvate and ATP. Mm-hmm. And then we know that there's another anaerobic step. Can produce lactic acid. So pyruvate breakdown step. Which produces lactic acid in animals for ethanol in bacteria. Is that right? And carbon dioxide. And then what are these other steps here? Citric acid cycle doesn't really say much about oxygen. We know the electron transfer chain requires oxygen. So that's going to be aerobic respiration. So electron transport chain. So let's do some Google research. Does Krebs cycle require oxygen? Krebs cycle, also known as citric acid cycle, doesn't require oxygen directly, but it does need oxygen to be present in the cell for it to happen. That's because it needs it for the steps before and after. But the electron transport chain does require oxygen, which produces ATP in water. I'm gonna write that down. All right. So the main points to know about aerobic respiration is that it's with oxygen, and that this could happen in step two instead of respiration, breakdown of pyruvate, produces acetyl-CoA. Also, step four, cellular respiration, electron transport chain, which produces ATP water. Now aerobic respiration, we'll just put step 1 of cell respiration, glycolysis. Also pyruvate. Let's make sure we don't forget our steps here. Now, glycolysis is step 1, so yeah. Which produces lactic acid in animals, ethanol. Good. I've got a lot of information there on aerobic respiration versus anaerobic. I think that's pretty good. What substances produce when aerobic respiration happens in animals like humans? Anaerobic respiration happens in animals like humans. What substances produce when yeast performs anaerobic respiration? Okay, we've already answered that here. I love when like you're trying to answer one question, you end up answering like 3 questions because you go so in depth on the one question that it ends up answering 3. That's great. So in anaerobic respiration, bacteria is going to produce that ethanol, carbon dioxide. So next to bacteria, we can put yeast because that's an example of bacteria. And in animals, we know that it produces lactic acid. And then glycolysis produces pyruvate ATP, right? And that's step 1 of this cellular respiration. It's also it's anaerobic step. And this is going to happen to anything that does glycolysis. That's just what glycolysis is. Is there any more information we need to put there? What substance produced in animals like humans? Yeah, and that's going to be lactic acid. To answer that question, what substance is produced when anaerobic respiration happens in animals like humans? That's where your lactic acid is going to be. That's what's going to happen. Pyruvate ATP. And then next to animals, we'll put like humans, just in case like humans comes up on the test. Like, what happens if if animals like humans are doing anaerobic cellular respiration? We know they ultimately produce lactic acid. So let's put some in here to know where our anaerobic respiration is. Anaerobic respiration. Let's highlight that. Oh, better charge this computer. All right, water break. All right, we're gonna get water. Came back with tea. All right, I know that. Okay, good. Where do we leave off at? What substance is produced when aerobic respiration happens in animals like humans, and what substance is produced when yeast perform anaerobic respiration? All right, where is ethanol? Put ethanol in bold and put lactic acid in bold. All right, got that. 1, 2, 5 more things. Be able to explain the cycle between photosynthesis and respiration. How are they related to each other? So let's say respiration here. I've got photosynthesis here. And I'll just put cellular respiration and photosynthesis are related. because the products of one are the reactants of the other one. That's how they're related. That's symbiotic relationship between plants and animals. Know the difference between autotrophs and heterotrophs and be able to give examples of each. Okay, so for this one, it's in the notes somewhere, but we're so close to being done. Let's give you all this one. Heterotrophs, autotrophs. Actually, I think I do know where to find this. Autotrophs, but we know that autotrophs produce their own energy. Example, plant. How do I say this about heterotrophs? Maybe I will refer to the notes. Use light energy from the sun to make food. We'll put that for autotrophs. Use light energy from the sun to make their own food. Example, plants. Whereas heterotrophs obtain energy through consuming food. Heterotrophs obtain energy from consuming food. That's what that said, right? Yeah. Okay, so examples, we'll put humans, ants, bears, fish, mushrooms. Yeah, you can put so many other examples for heterotrophs, whatever you want to put here. And autotrophs, you put plants, maybe put photosynthetic bacteria. Yeah. All right. Wow. We're done with that section. That's a big one. Cell energy was a big section. I think that's the majority of the notes here. Sorry, yeah, I got ATP. There was DNA, mitosis. Yeah, we had a good bit of notes here. Got 4 pages here, right? You're only allowed 1 page front and back. As I was saying, though, no matter how many pages it takes you when you do this like first round of just going through the study guide, just do that many pages, and then you have these many pages to work with, and then you break that down into 1 page. And if that takes you 2, 3 rounds of studying, that just take as many rounds as you need. Give yourself time to do this studying, right? As with any test. I know this isn't your only class, so it can be challenging, but that's what it's like in academics. We got to challenge ourselves to learn things at a quick rate, at a very fast rate. But that's the beauty of college, right? A lot of people think you need to get a bachelor's degree in 4 years. You could take 1 class a term. You don't get the same financial aid benefits, or maybe there will be scholarships that cover just 4 credits a term, but you literally take like say you're working a full-time job, you could take a class, that works with your work schedule, or you could find a job that works with a college schedule and just take 1 class a term. Take as much time as you need, and like just really enjoy life while other people are stressing because they have 3 or 4 classes. You just take like 1 class, like I'm chilling, like I'm really absorbing this information. That's fun to do. I did that like my 6th year of college because I only had like 12 credits left to get my degree. And the way with financial aid and everything, and I was just like, yo, why don't I take 4 credits each term, and then like the other 8 credits I'll take like creative writing. I'll take 4 PE classes, and then I'll take my biology class. Like I did that basically for like 3 terms straight. I had the chillest senior year, right? It was my 6th year to get my bachelor's, but it was super chill, and it was a lot of fun. Highly recommend taking your time. Be able to explain the water cycle. What does each process do in the water cycle? How are humans affecting the water cycle? Wow. Okay. That's a packed one right there. Let's go to the notes. What do we have here? No, that's that. So let's go here. Let's go water cycle. Put that in bold. Hmm. All right. So for the water cycle, I think it's best to copy down this cycle here because this is everything you need, right? It's got precipitation. It's got evaporation, which is water going up to the atmosphere. It's got condensation, which is water turning from its gaseous state to a liquid state. It's got the rain clouds, rain, which is precipitation. It's got runoff. What does that say right there? Oh, surface runoff. Got infiltration. It's got percolation. Yeah, this is great. So I'll put drawing from slide 11, week 17, Monday, Tuesday. All right. Drawing. Week 17, Monday/Tuesday. Slide number 11. I put this slide a bunch of times in here because I wanted to, like, if y'all remember this lesson, right? It was like, what's transpiration, right? And I told y'all how it was plants basically sweating. And then we're like, okay, where's evaporation on here? And then I told you the next definition, condensation, and then went to the next one. That slides in a bunch of places than just slide 11. But for here, I'll put slide 11. So copy that drawing down. Drawings are light blue, right? Yeah. And right here, I'll put add definitions for each term if you need them. And I will unhighlight that part. And so what do I mean by add definitions for each term if you need them? Well, you could put this drawing here. You could put precipitation, evaporation, condensation. But if you don't know what these words mean, that might not help you on a test very much. If you get asked about what is condensation, and then you can't tell the difference between condensation, transpiration, evaporation, precipitation, that'd be bad, right? And so the definitions are in these slides. What is evaporation? Well, that's when you convert liquid water into gas water. What is transpiration? Evaporation from plants. What is condensation? How water vapor turns into liquids. What is precipitation? Infiltration, percolation, runoff. What do these things mean? The definitions are all there. So when you draw this cycle, I would draw a little note of the definition next to it if you need to. If you need it. If you already know precipitation means rain, if you already know condensation means turning water gas into liquid water, then you got it. You don't need it, right? That's the whole point of this cheat sheet. If you don't have it in your head and you just need just a good reminder, you put it on the cheat sheet. Here, I'm kind of putting everything on here, right? And then you can condense as you like. All right. And what else do we need for the water cycle? Be able to explain the water cycle. Okay, so explain how water evaporates into the air. It condenses, turns into a rain cloud, and it comes back down. it can go straight into a plant. It could run off the side of a mountain into the river. The river goes into either a lake or the ocean, and it's just this huge cycle again. Evaporates from the ocean, it even evaporates from a lake or a river. That evapotranspiration, right? Because transpiration is plants releasing water into the atmosphere. What does each process do in the water cycle? We have the definitions there, and how are humans affecting the water cycle? Okay, we have a slide on that. Humans affect the water cycle by withdrawing large quantities of fresh water, clearing vegetation for agriculture, mining, construction, and forestry. We got agriculture, mining, what else? Construction and forestry. And modifying water quality. Speaking of modifying water quality, let me check on this T. That is nearly drinkable. Well, gotta charge a phone, but the laptop needs it more. So let the phone die. So how are humans affecting the water cycle? We got that. Bada boom. Be able to explain the carbon cycle. Where is carbon stored in the carbon cycle? How are humans affecting the carbon cycle? Okay, so below water cycle, we'll put carbon cycle. Does this require another drawing? Maybe. Or is it necessary? Be able to explain the carbon cycle. Gas portion cycle. Oh, that's really good right there. These yellow notes right here is probably good. Carbon is stored in living tissues and fossil fuel deposits. And this is saying, where is carbon stored in the carbon cycle? Oh, great. Okay. So I think we should copy these ones. Carbon cycle. So you should know. Don't need to know that you don't need to put on there that carbon is the basic building block of life. We know that. Gas portion of cycle is based on CO2, right? Carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Autotrophs remove CO2 in the air by photosynthesis, and respiration and decomposition of organisms put CO2 back into the atmosphere. That's a really good explanation of the carbon cycle right there. So we're going to put that in good order here. Let's just write a paragraph of the whole cycle. Maybe we should do it like this. Yeah, make it more organized. Respiration, decomposition. And then the last one that we had to put was this one right here. Carbon is stored in living tissues and the fossil fuel deposits. So when asked, where is carbon stored in the carbon cycle? We have that, right? It's stored in living tissues and fossil fuel deposits. We have be able to explain the carbon cycle. I mean, this is really good here, right? Gas portion cycle is in the air. Autotrophs remove it. Respiration, decomposition, put it back. And carbon can also be stored in living tissues and phosphate deposits. Let's see if there's any information else that like we should know here. So we already put that organic matter or living tissues store carbon as fossil fuel deposits. Hmm. Carbon can also be stored as limestone. Okay, and it did ask about how humans affect the carbon cycle. So might as well just put that here. Start that now. Humans, the carbon cycle by burning fossil fuels. All right. Carbon is stored in living tissues and phosphate deposits. Carbon is also stored in limestone. Yeah, so add that and how carbon is stored, limestones, living tissues, and phosphate deposits. What else did I like here? We know that we already got photosynthesis, the respiration. We already got burning fossil fuels. Yeah, good. How about all right, human effects? What are we doing? We're adding carbon to the atmosphere by burning fossil fuels, and we're clearing trees and plants that absorb CO2. Humans affect the carbon cycle. There I go with that capital HU again. By burning fossil fuels, removing plants that would have absorbed CO2. And was there another one there? And enhance the greenhouse effect. By burning fossil fuels and removing plants that would have been absorbed by CO2, this enhances the greenhouse effect. Nice. All right. That's good, T. Wow, we're on the last one. I think we were able to explain the carbon cycle by everything I just wrote there. Don't even need to write it down, right? You really even have a drawing for this. Let's highlight that yellow. And last but not least, this one about the nitrogen cycle. I'll be able to explain the nitrogen cycle. So let's write a note here about the nitrogen cycle. We didn't get to cover this in detail, but we did play a fun nitrogen cycle game, right? If you were there, you remember how we went in all these different sides of the room and the lab. We saw how nitrogen could be in water. We saw how it could be in the atmosphere. We saw how that gets taken by a wild animal, how the animal dies, and that releases nitrogen. And so there's a couple important things that Rondo wanted y'all to know about the nitrogen cycle, and it's a very quick, like, this intro about the nitrogen cycle. So I'm hoping there's not too many questions about it. But there still could be since it's on here. What other processes involved? What organisms make nitrogen cycle possible? Okay, so we should at least get this one. What organisms make the nitrogen cycle possible? Now, nitrogen cycle. Now, he did say bacteria is the most important organism for fixing nitrogen. So we'll write that. Bacteria is most important organism for fixing nitrogen. What else? So that's the organism part. How are humans affecting the nitrogen cycle? Humans affect the nitrogen cycle by, and there was a note that I wrote down because he said it, and I was like, ooh, I'm gonna write that down. That way I could share it with the class. Humans use too much nitrogen in their fertilizers, which ends up in the water supply by adding too much nitrogen. I'll just put N because in chemistry we just write nitrogen as N. You could write out nitrogen if you want, or you just put N. Too much nitrogen in fertilizers that end up in the water supply. Yeah. So got that. What are the processes involved, and be able to explain the nitrogen cycle? Well, we don't really have much resources for the nitrogen cycle, so this one was a really good one. We shared this in class. We talked about it a little bit. All right, I'm gonna add this in Canvas. Copy image. Where should I put this at? Let's go modules. So we didn't put anything there. Maybe I'll put this right here. I'll duplicate that. Put this down here. That we have a resource on nitrogen cycle. And so we'll edit that. This is Wednesday. Week 17, Wednesday. Nitrogen cycle. Picture? Graph? Yeah, I know. Don't overthink it. All right. And then I'll go here, go into it. And then we're going to delete all this stuff. And then I'll post that picture. Perfecto. Let's make it bigger. Excelente. Save. And then we'll publish once we get back into modules. So now you have this picture on Canvas. Gets me every time. Now you have this picture on Canvas. All right, so let's take a look at it. This is when we do the nitrogen cycle game. So remember, this is the teacher view, so it looks a little different than the student view. We have stuff unpublished here. Yeah. So when this asks stuff like be able to explain the nitrogen cycle, let's just explain it. Let's just go nitrogen in the atmosphere. Goes into the ground and gets fixed by bacteria. So it gets fixed by bacteria, becomes an ammonium, gets fixed by bacteria, becomes nitrites, it's fixed by bacteria, becomes nitrates, which can be used by plants. And so in this one, it was by the legume root, it just gets fixed into where it could be used by plants. So we could just put, we don't have to put each step here, right? We don't have to put like how it becomes, we don't have to put a modification or nitrification. We just put nitrogen in the atmosphere goes to the ground and gets fixed by bacteria. So nitrogen can be used by plants. One thing that Rondeau said was that nitrogen in the air is unavailable to us, right? Because of the triple bonds and all that. And so one thing bacteria does, it converts it into a usable form of nitrogen. And that's good because we need nitrogen. It's the most abundant element in the atmosphere. Now, what else could happen to this nitrogen? Now, the bunny could eat the plant, right? Animals can get nitrogen by absorbing plants. And when they die, nitrogen can return back to the soil. That's a good way to put it. Now, what else happened here? Oh yeah, okay. So lightning has an effect as well, right? So we have the nitrogen fixing bacteria, denitrifying bacteria. So how does nitrogen go from soil back to atmosphere? That's a good question. Nitrogen moves between the atmosphere and soil through a biogeological process called nitrogen cycle. This process involves several steps, including denitrification, which is the nitrogen returns the atmosphere from the soil. Oh, okay. Denitrification. We should put that down. That's fun. Oh, but nitrogen can also return to the atmosphere by denitrification. And if you don't know what that means, you could put so this word here is the process of nitrogen returning to the atmosphere from the soil. Going from soil to atmosphere, right? Let's give that a quick Google real quick. Denitrification definition. Make sure we're right about that. It's a loss or removal of nitrogen compounds. The loss or removal of nitrogen compounds. The escape of nitrogen into the air. Yay, I was right. Okay. Cool. When they die, nitrogen can return back to the soil. So animals can get the nitrogen by absorbing plants. What else do we have going on in this graph? So we have the denitrification. Oh yeah. Then how does lightning produce bacteria nitrogen? Lightning's energy breaks nitrogen bonds. Oh yeah, because it's that N2, right? Lightning's powerful electric currents break the triple bonds between nitrogen atoms in the atmosphere, which are in the form of N2. Nitrogen atoms combine with oxygen. The separated nitrogen atoms then bond with oxygen in the atmosphere to form nitrogen oxides. Oh, those are the things we drink as runners. And we usually get them for like beets and like cilantro and stuff like that. And it really dilates the blood vessels and stuff like that. And when you're running, you want blood flow and stuff like that. So, and oxides, I know a little bit about that. Oh, man. Okay, so nitrogen oxides are carried to plants. The nitrogen oxides are carried by water vapor and reach plants where they can be used for growth. Very cool. Very cool stuff here. Okay. Um, lightning can also make inert nitrogen. Now, inert means unusable nitrogen. Inert definition, lacking the ability or strength to move, lacking vigor. Inert nitrogen. Make sure I'm right about that. Nitrogen is considered an inert gas because non-reactive and has a low. Okay, so it's non-reactive. That's what the definition of that is. Lightning can also make inert nitrogen available for use in plants. Animals can get nitrogen by absorbing plants, and when they die, nitrogen returns back to the soil. Cool. We checked off all the boxes. Yes. Boom, boom. We're done. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. I'm so sleepy. It's 11:14. All right, way past my bedtime. Cool. So that is that. This cheat sheet on my Google Doc. Of course, right? It's not like the handwritten paper where I could just fit stuff here and there and uh, just kind of upload my brain onto a piece of paper. I need to type stuff out here. Um, yeah, but this took me 4 pages, and like I teach this stuff. But then again, I do go pretty far in detail, and I do that because it gives me confidence on test, right? Knowing things, like knowing more than what I need to know to pass the class will give me confidence I can pass the class. Like, of course I'll pass the class. I know like way more than I even should for the class, right? And that's the kind of mindset I have, right? That gave me some success, right? I mean, I'm not like I didn't go to Harvard or anything like that, but I did get a bachelor's degree in biology, and that's pretty cool to me, I guess. All right, so there is the cheat sheet. Look this over here. I'm going to do a slow roll so you could like pause the video here and there. That way you could copy everything down, you know, and of course you'll see things in here and you'll be like, what? And if you're looking at certain parts of this video and like you don't understand like why I put this here for that, we should go back to where I wrote down the video. That's going to take some searching. So you could do all that work, or you could use kind of some of the strategies I used here and do this on your own, right? Do I recommend watching the 2 hour part one video and this probably 1.5 hour second part video? If you need to, sure. Like if you have a very low grade in the class and like this test is gonna make or break you from passing the class, I'd recommend watching this video. But if you have a pretty good grade in the class, you probably already know how to study. A video like this might just be a waste of time for you, and that's okay. But yeah, here's this cheat sheet. This information, some pretty good stuff here. Use your study guide, make it make sense to you. That's the most important thing, is you pass this test. About done with my slow roll here. Wait, I'll go right here so you can see the nitrogen cycle. Good. All right, we're all done. Thanks for watching. If you watched both of these videos, you're a trooper.